All right, everybody, here we are. We are back again today, and we're going to talk about some leads and probates and all kinds of fun stuff. So today I have Micah Nicholes here with US Lead List, which I know a lot of you guys have heard about. They're probably the leading source for probate leads in the country. Every investor, every coach, everybody I know gets their leads from him. So wanted to have him here today and talk a little bit about that. But just also, he has a very interesting story. Lived all over the country. You live on a 100-acre farm now. Is that real?
Absolutely. Yeah, for real.
So, but you've done all kinds of things, wholesaling, investing. And then during the pandemic, you decided you wanted to buy a company. And that's how you kind of ended up here. So first, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. I know you got a lot of cool stories and a lot of value to share, especially probate, because it's one of those things that I think a lot of people hear about, but don't necessarily understand all the ins and outs. But give us a rundown. How did it all happen? How did you get into real estate?
I think it's similar to everyone's Robert Kiyosaki set the seed early on, and I bought my first, actual rental properties about 8 years ago. So I'm a newbie compared to you. And by the way, thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure just to get to know you better and to to connect with your crowd. You run a wonderful operation and a lot of investors, tons of value. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Man, you're welcome. I tell people this sometimes. They're like, why do you want to have a podcast? I'm like, I just want to have a podcast so I can hang out all day and talk to cool people. It's not anything really more than that. I just want to try to get a little bit smarter myself. So I appreciate you being on.
So yeah, bought my first properties 8 years ago in rural Wisconsin. I mean, I bought them maybe for a quarter of their value now. I actually sold those properties to buy this business. Real estate has just been always a passion, and I've grown to, it's gotten more and more involved, more complex, and more fun as time goes on, as I learn more and get to do more sophisticated deals. And probate is definitely part of that. And I didn't know nearly as much as I do now when I bought the company. If you were to ask me what it's like buying a business, and if I would do it again, I would say I don't know totally. There's a lot of blind spots, but I wouldn't change it for the world. Being at where I'm now, and it's just a big adventure. Always something new. But yeah, so I live on 100 acres in Wisconsin. I've started so many businesses. I was a sawyer. I was a farmer. I worked in restaurants forever. All those things were great, except they didn't really make it money. Eventually, I got wiser and started to take my time seriously and just started grinding on something that did me well and gave me good returns. And so that was real estate. And, since I bought those first properties, I started flipping. I started doing wholesaling. Now, I own this company, but I also own another company where we're doing deals virtually, basically throughout the U.S.
Really?
We're always vetting our leads. We send out letters. We want to know what response rate is. So we'll hit on, markets that, none of our clients are in and just see, hey, what's working? Try a new mail piece. You garner little nuggets along the way. Recently I changed my letter just a little bit, and I basically 5x my response rate. I'm like, this is
really,
insane. Yeah, I'll tell you. Don't tell anyone else though.
Be our secret.
It's so simple, but instead of coming at folks with a direct proposition, I want to buy your property, I close fast, all the typical jargon of the standard yellow letter. We just say, hey, I have a question about your property. And we're sending these to probate leads. And so, there's a really strong chance that they're going to sell. If you sent it to, let's say, just a zip code or something, you may not get the right response you want. But if you know they're motivated, you know that they're likely going to sell. It's a good way to get responses from folks that you wouldn't otherwise talk to.
Let me just go back a little bit, because you said you were a Sawyer. Obviously, we know I have pronunciation issues, right? But I practiced a lot before you got on here, by the way. Stephanie was here. His name again. But tell me about that. What's that all about?
I live on 100 acres in Wisconsin here. Mostly what our forest is that we have about 60 acres or so of black walnut. So if you're familiar with, hardwoods in general, black walnut's probably one of the most sought after. And so we had basically a virgin growth of uncut walnut from I don't know when. So, there's deadfalls. And again, I was just trying to do something useful, provide for my family. And so I bought a portable mill, and I literally would just saw walnut. I still actually do it. I just sold a giant slab to a friend over the weekend, but now I don't saw anymore. I sold my mill. I got rid of all of it. Now I have other people saw, and I buy timber and I layer up that way. I don't want to sound disingenuous or anything, but once you get into, cutting open a log and seeing the wood grain underneath, my dad said this, and it's like, it's kind of like undressing a woman. Beautiful. And I don't mean that you should undress every woman. I have one. So, that's more than enough for me. So I don't mean that in any,
either your wife or your girlfriend, just not both, right? Just pick one. I used to run a mill shop, so we made doors. Another life, custom moldings and everything. So very familiar with that. Beautiful wood, especially you put some clear coat on it or some stain, it really pops like crazy. So I thought that was what it was. But anyway, it's fascinating. So you said Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which, right, isn't that the most cliche thing ever? I feel like every person we talked to, I did it. I was in the airport and picked up Rich Dad, Poor Dad and started reading it, and off to the races I went and found a RIA. But like, what was your initial draw to real estate? Because obviously he talks about other ways to make money too.
Yeah, the tangibility of it. And two, for whatever reason, and I've changed my investing habits, but in Wisconsin, especially where I live, it's pretty old as far as the Midwest goes. And so there's lots of really beautiful Victorians, stone-built homes. And just the history of those was really captivating for me. And so the first buildings I bought was an old Victorian and a stone building. And turns out they're awful because the maintenance is ridiculous. Everything's retrofitted. It's just a lot more work. I'd much rather have something built to modern standards. But I think it was a combination of those that, controllable asset that you can leverage, you can force appreciation, and then the history of it really caught me.
Yeah, that's what I always say about real estate. It's better than every other asset class. I can touch it, lick it, feel it, crawl underneath it. You compare it to one that's identical 2 blocks away and know that it has more value. And especially if I can buy it at some type of a discount, thumbs up all the way. Same way, even here in Chattanooga, it's an old city, not probably as old as yours, but yeah, it's always fascinating to go through some of these older neighborhoods that may be a little rundown now and go, geez, I wonder what that was like back then. Or what kind of things went on in buildings that I own? What was it? I've heard some stories actually, but what was going on in these places before, and what's that history? I find that kind of always fascinating. So, what part of Wisconsin are you in?
South Central, just outside of Madison.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, right on the edge of what's called the Driftless area. It's like the only part of Wisconsin. Everywhere else in Wisconsin is geographically boring, but the Driftless area wasn't glaciated, and so it's kind of like the Finger Lakes region of New York. Valleys, fresh spring-fed springs or streams and rivers, rather.
Yeah.
Really over that. Anyway, we have a stream that goes through our property. I love fishing. I love trout.
That's great. So. I did a lot of that. Well, I was a Boy Scout in New Hampshire, and we do all kinds of rainbow trout and do all that stuff. Did you wholesale first or flip first? Which poison did you pick?
I actually just bought and hold. I mean, the first property I bought, it was a 4-unit. I bought it for $52,000.
What?
Yeah, I think it grossed something like $1,600 out of the gates.
Oh my Lord! Forex rent multiplier, right?
Town has done that 3 times for me. Only own one property there anymore, but I bought a 12-unit. It grosses about $11,000. I bought it for $315,000. I'm convinced actually that small town America, where I've had great success with rentals, is kind of like the final frontier of value add real estate. The little tiny pockets, maybe not as predictable, maybe not as much appreciation, but for cash flow, it's hard to beat. Yeah,
and when we ran a large wholesaling company, you would always have to differentiate between those markets that are great cash flow markets for an investor, but not a good market to wholesale in, right?
Absolutely.
Like that fourplex, would you say 42,000 or 52,000? Yeah, 52. Like I would have to buy that at 32 to sell it to you. So some of those markets, it gets a little ridiculous. Like you just can't get low enough. But if you're a buy and hold investor, it's amazing. Like Ohio's like that. There are a bunch of markets that are great for landlords, not necessarily good for wholesalers. So cool. So you buy and hold, and then what was next?
Then I started wholesaling. I didn't really do a lot of active outreach, and it was just a slow build. I had a full-time job. I worked at restaurants for 20 years. In my off hours, I'd be on Craigslist. I'd be, I would go knock some doors, but it was just an irregular kind of passive thing that, probably brought me $50,000 to $100,000 a year for several years. During the pandemic, everyone had so much time on their hands, right? So I'm just like looking at what I'm doing and how I'm getting by, and I'm not working. I'm sitting around. I'm like, man, I got to change something. Like this little part-time thing has given me more rewards than my full-time,
Yeah.
W-2. Concurrently, also the government was really freaked out because they were worried that the mergers and acquisitions market was going to drop out, and that was going to be maybe a potential black swan. And so they were putting tons of money in grants and just basically rewards for anyone willing to buy a business in that period. So they would pay your first 6 months of your SBA loan for you.
Wow.
So if you're buying a multi-million-dollar business, like that's a good chunk of change. And then, they did other things. I don't know how familiar folks are with SBA loans, but SBA loan to originate one, there's a fee. So they knocked out that, I think it's a 3% fee or somewhere in that vicinity. So they made the entry point just really, really favorable. And so I was just watching all of it and I'm like, well, hell, everyone else is scared shitless. Blood's on the street. Like now's the time to make a move. Yeah, I vetted a ton of companies, just looked at their numbers, and I finally settled on what is U.S. lead lists.
So many questions. First off, I've heard SBA loans are kind of hard to get. I mean, I have the whatever it is, the loan that came from the pandemic that was super easy to grab. But who taught you how to do all this? How'd you learn how to evaluate hundreds of companies, or were you just kind of winging it, or like how to do it?
Probably the spirit of most kind of entrepreneurs, just like, well, the information's out there somewhere. Someone knows, and if you ask and knock at enough doors, you're going to get the information. And so that was kind of what I did. I mean, I just started brokers, and that was the route I went. You can buy businesses without a broker, but I was using mostly bizbuysell.com. So you can go on there and you can literally just search. And so that was where I looked and kind of found most of the businesses that I was trying to acquire. They're kind of like the gatekeepers, the brokers are there. It's like, do you have money? Are you actually serious? Can you get this done?
Yeah.
And, so you got to kind of put a face on, I learned, and maybe pretend that you've got more than you have. But that said, like I found a good business for a SBA broker, and pretty much it wasn't insanely complicated. Did I feel like I signed my life away when I, signed that SBA loan? Yes. Does it sometimes keep me up at night? Yeah, kind of.
What's different about the terms for SBA?
Yeah, they make you sign a universal guarantee. If I fail, any tangible asset can be claimed by the bank. That it's not even the SBA. It's because they're just a partner. They're just guaranteeing it. It's an actual bank that's underwriting the loan. They basically have tabs on every asset that I own.
Okay. Well, how's business been?
Yeah. I mean, well, it was funny because right after the pandemic, everything was like great. It went fine for a little bit. There was just a shift in the marketplace, marketing period during pandemic. Like everything kind of dropped off. Everyone didn't know what was going to happen. The market shot up, all these things. And so, we started losing like a few clients, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to figure out how to bring this back. I got to talk to more people who can really understand the value of what we're bringing people. And that's what I've been doing. It's just been a slow build of like, talking to people like you, getting exposure, trying to like help people understand. Yeah, I mean, it's good. Business has consistently grown since that dip, but that's the differentiation point of originated data, and that's what we're doing. We're originating, novel data that no one else is getting. Yeah, I mean, it's good. Business has consistently grown since that dip, but that's was the height of my facial hair turning gray. The gray hair is popping. I'm sure I know you get that part. So.
Oh, dude, I used to be pure blonde, and now I'm gray as the day is long. You guys, you only provide probate leads. That's right.
That's our grind. Yep, that's our. I mean, we have other data channels. But what we're monitoring, like what we sell to folks is what we call our inheritance list. That's where 90% of our revenue comes from.
And when you say you cultivate it yourself, like you literally have people out there just combing through, the courthouses, or is it you do that online, or is it just a mix?
It's a mix. Yeah, we're pulling in basically all of our source data comes from kind of 4 different channels, and so we're combining all of that, deduplicating, making sure we've got the right person, and then we're overlapping property with that. And inheritance is a little bit different than probate in that we're including surviving spouses, and then we're also searching for trusts. And both of those, if you're familiar, bypass probate. They go through probate. A little different, just a couple of nuances there that are specific about what we're doing with our company and our data.
If I was still wholesaling and signed up to get a list from you, is it all online? Like, give me kind of a rundown of what it looks like for the client, for me.
Everything can be online, or it can be on the phone with our salesperson. We actually have people who answer the phone and like live. It's not shipped out overseas, and so. But the website's easy. Basically, you go in and you pick out your farm area, whatever that may be, and we sell data by the county. And so It's a flat rate per lead, $1.50 if you subscribe with us, essentially, and it's however many matches we make in that county. But another thing that we do that I don't see our competitors doing at all, and I'm not trying to talk bad about them, but I think it's a good differentiating point, is that we only sell each county 3 times. And so we have wait lists for, a fair bit of counties where we don't sell the data. And, you can ask around, like, we don't budge on that. And so really, we just want to give value to the end client, help them have a good chance to talk to this person at the right time when they're going to need to transition this ownership and make a deal.
That way you're not because I know a lot of people I'm in a lot of groups where they'll complain that it feels like people are reselling data to like 100 different people. So that's cool that you guys do that.
I think it makes a big difference. Certainly there's overlap with other people in our space that we're doing, but I get a lot of feedback. They're like, well, hey, I'm already working with someone. Can you just do a cross-reference? Almost always we're 50 to 60% more data than all of our competitors that I've seen.
And do you think that just because of the way you guys pull the data and actually go in there and just dig for it, really, right? You're just not doing some surface level pull?
Most of the time, especially the big data aggregators, they're using prepackaged data. They're not originating themselves. They're taking a product from someone else. And it's good to make that distinction and understand that not big data is created equal.
And I think that, that's just a good business lesson, right? If you're willing to do something that nobody else is willing to do, you're going to get better results, right? Absolutely. So if I'm going to pay anybody for data, I want to make sure I'm getting the best results, because for me, when I ran a very big wholesale company, every dollar that goes out is like a little soldier. It needs to come back with 3 or 4 friends, right? I need to be flexing every dollar that goes out. So it's very important, especially, if I can be buying your data really the same price, because you know how affordable you guys are. Why wouldn't I be doing that? It doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah, exactly. And to that end, this week closing on my largest ever assignment, and only because I went and did something that but almost no one else does. I door knocked this guy 4 times.
Really?
I finally got to see him face to face and make a connection and make an offer for his property. It took me, granted, 5 more offers to get to the price that he would accept. But in the end, we got 4 acres that's going to turn into a 130 unit development, and we got entitlement and then sold that to a developer.
Oh, nice. So where was the lead? Lead was from you guys, right?
Yeah, it was probate lead.
Yeah. So he just one of the heirs, or who was he?
So it was actually his sister passed away. Their family owned basically the whole west side of Madison. This was like the final chunk of land that they had their 120 acre farm, and the rest of it is development in a really sought after area, really nice. So his sister died, she gave it to him, and he was the next door neighbor, the next adjoining parcel. He had door knocked him, and first actually he did give feedback. He wrote us a letter, really just cryptic, what would you offer? And no number, no nothing. And so I mailed him back. I didn't hear from him for a week. I door knocked him, like I said, 4 times. And I made him a really low offer, like $200,000 under his assessed value, $200K. That didn't fly. At some point, someone whispered in his ear that his property should sell for a market rate for a development potential around $2.4 million.
Wow.
So after many offers, I got up to $2 million, and he accepted. Far cry from where I started.
You don't know if you don't try.
That's exactly right. But yeah, and then we got it under contract, put a year timeline on it. The city was in favor of it. They want to develop. They want that that tax roll coming in. Got it approved for 130 units, and then sold it to a developer. So that'll be a $250,000 paycheck on that one.
Wow. So a couple takeaways there. One, and I've always known this. I've never done a deal like that, but land, you always need a longer contract length on, right? Because there's diligence for sure. Even an infill lot, you want to see if the city's going to let you build on it before you go pay 30, 40, 50 grand for it, let alone $2 million. So to do the entitlements, explain what that is, because I don't know if a lot of people will understand that.
Depending on where it's at, the zoning of the property. And so, currently this land was zoned, single family residence, but there were several conditional uses that the city would approve, but you have to basically take it to city planning meeting and present, whatever you're going to do. And so I actually, partnered with someone on this, and they did all this for me because I've never done it before either. We developed a plan. We got some architectural sketches done of what we were thinking. Initially, we were hoping for more, 200 units, and that would have been a lot bigger payday ultimately. But the whole neighborhood was really against that. They didn't want to see it. They thought it'd be too much. And so this was second plan that we came in with and presented it to them. And ultimately the city said, yes, the conditional usage of this land as multifamily is approved. And basically there's the ability to build within the parameters that we gave them on the outside. And so it doesn't have to be firm design, but you have to give them some kind of a density, how many units per acre, all of those things. So that's process or entitlement just means that you're now entitled to build what you want to on the land.
So there were just some rough layouts of the parcel and what would work there and how many parking spots and all that kind of stuff, right?
Exactly. Yep.
So how did you find the buyer? This is fascinating for me.
Basically the partner who I found, he worked with, he works with, several people, developers in the area. And so he is kind of like a matchmaker. And so he was like, hey, I think he's actually going to stay in the deal. So he's going to be part of the development team and part of that development fee ultimately. So it'll be a $30, $40 million project. And so these guys make, depending on the deal, 2 to 3% of that total amount, and that's what their take is as a developer partner in the deal. And so he's going to make way more money. But at the same time, I got to ride shotgun and see how all of those done. I got to see the whole process, and I got to learn. And so I'm in a way better position now to do the same thing and replicate this process going forward.
There's so much value in that. I saw a post earlier on Facebook, a land guy that I know out of Texas, and he said, when I did my first deal, literally, I just brought it to somebody and said, if you'll show me and then just pay me what you think it's worth, just because I just want to learn. And then he was talking about doing something very, very similar to this. So I think there's a lot of value there for people, who are, wanting to do something different or new or stretch into a different kind of niche of real estate where, you may not know what you're doing, but bring a deal, bring some value to somebody who does know how to do that deal. And just watch, man. If you just watch it happen, now you have the ability to go out and do those deals yourself, and learn things. So you didn't want to take the option or to stay in the deal? Take a little less.
I mean, I've got a couple others in the that I'm working on, and for me at this phase, cash is more useful. Yeah, and I mean, I think it's to your point of what you said, it's like if it were me, based on my wholesaling knowledge, how I would normally operate in a deal, I would have let that die after the first offer. I would just say, oh, this guy's crazy, he wants so much money. But I just kept on pressing in, and it's like, no, there's gold here somewhere. I just got to figure out how. That's where you got to lean on your network.
Yeah, and I meant to bring it up when you were talking about that, but so many people would just quit there. Oh, I sent a letter, and he sent me something back, and I crumbled it up and threw it away, or I got nothing back, so I'm never going to call that guy again. I'm just going to buy more lists or do more stuff. No, I think it shows, incredible just tenacity. And again, I spent money for that list. I need to milk it and, squeeze it like the orange that it is and make sure I get every drop out of there. And so, no, I think that's amazing. And that's a great lesson for people who are listening, who may not have done their first deal yet, or, they're sitting on a pile of leads and they're like, geez, I don't know what to do. We used to keep, in the old days, I'm going to tell you, the old days before we had fancy stuff. Literally, I had a call center that, my leads would call into, and they would email me these lead sheets every day as soon as they came in. And we had them in this binder of leads. And we always knew at any time we could pull that binder and go get $50,000. There's always money in those old leads. All you got to do is call them. We veered off of your company and the probates. Give us, like, since you're the probate guy, give us some tips on people who want to get into probates, why probates are a good idea. And then we'll kind of talk a little bit about how they can get a hold of you.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I think, if you just start at the transfer of wealth right now, it's like baby boomers are on their way out. It's going to be the largest wealth transfer in the history of the world. As these folks pass away, like, they've collected the most valuable assets that America has, for quite a long time. They've been kind of living high on the hog. And so I think there's a really big opportunity coming, there. And if someone wants to go down the business route, it's the same is true in that part. But what I've found doing this is that probate, it's not like gasoline on the fire. It's a slow burn. And you said it well when you kind of got to wring them out. You did the work. You're in front of them. The real money is in the follow up and staying in front of this person, communicating that you're an option to buy. Because when the death happens, like, everything just kind of tightens up. It's bound. There's emotions at play. There's logistics at play. Legal matters. All those things make selling a property, which is already kind of a big decision, right? It makes it more challenging. But if you're willing to go that extra mile, send the extra marketing piece, stay in front of them over a longer period of time, this will literally fill your pipeline for years. You just have to do it. And so, like, last week I got a call from a guy who's, hey, I want to sell my property. I was like, okay, yeah, no problem. What's your name? So I looked up his name. He was on a list that I sent out right when I bought the company 3.5 years ago. Finally, he's ready to move into this place of like, oh, I'm getting rid of it. Marketing people talk about, you can't over communicate your message that you are,
right.
You want to be that person, let's say, I'm a buyer. I'm a buyer. You just have to keep on repeating to these people, I'm a buyer, because at some point there's a flip that, switch is going to flip.
Yeah.
And you don't know when that's going to be. You don't know, how far down the road, but if they think of you first, oh, that guy, he sent me 8 postcards, like, he won't leave me alone. Like, that guy's got to be interested in this property. As soon as they decide, you're the first person that comes to mind. And so that's where, like, that 8th marketing piece that you send someone becomes the most valuable, because you've been the most consistent. And that's another thing that just no one else is really doing really well in the marketplace. And so I think that's how to use these leads. Stay in front.
Yeah. Consistency is key. And, something, I think my brother might have said this before, but like, time and circumstances changes everything. I mean, again, you're dealing with probate. So people have passed away. So there's lots of heartbreak and turmoil, right, going on. And then all the other crazy stuff that, you see at Tyler Perry movie of all the craziness when people pass away. But so they may not be ready the day that something happens. But, 6 months or a year from now, that things have settled in a little bit. And they're like, okay, now it's time to part ways with this. So I buy the list. Can I send my mailers directly through you, or do I have to get a different company? Are you just the list, or can we do everything?
Yeah, we do have a fulfillment service, and I'll just be honest. We're more expensive than most folks. We only do letters, and they're put together by a middle-aged woman in an office in California. So we're not the most productive on that. But what we do out, it looks and feels like someone actually held it in their hand. And I think that's the other component that people overlook. It's like, I sent out 10,000 letters. It's like, that's fine if you send out 10,000 letters, but if they look exactly the same, if it feels like, a credit card offer or something like that, like, your response rate's going to suck. What I send out, it looks like something you get from the Hallmark aisle. It looked like a card almost, like they would be expecting this. As a really important component. So absolutely, we can help with that. If we're too expensive, I'll recommend other people. Like, there's options. Cheap is not better when it comes to direct mail. That's my experience.
When I first started, I was half of broke. Like, I didn't have enough money to be considered broke when we started. We were literally like handwriting postcards to send out. It was stupid. But I mean, there becomes a point where, you don't have as much time and you have a little bit more money. And for me, it was better to, just buy the list, send it, boom, and it's done, instead of I download it and I pay, a couple $100 for this list and then I lose it, or I forget to send, all these things happen. stepping, like, the most important thing in your business, especially if you're on the marketing side, is keeping that wheel turning, right? Continuously turning. When you get into that sort of wholesale cycle of death is when you market and then you stop and then you get leads and you deal with your leads and then you sell your leads and then you close them. And now you've been through a 3-month cycle and you're like, oh my God, I have no leads coming in. Physically go out there and crank that engine up again. And it's very hard. So, I'm all for finding a one-stop shop that can do it all and do it at a very high level. 2, I love what you're talking about with the Hallmark letter and the condolence type card or feel, because I do a lot of talks about marketing, and marketing, the most important thing in marketing, and this is from being an old school direct mail guy, is, that letter has to get opened, right? Like the first step doesn't matter what's inside the letter. First step is get them to open it. So again, if it looks like a number 10 envelope that you printed off on your, 1985 HP printer, and you bulk mailed it, well, nobody's going to open that crap. I get those things, I tear them up before I even open them. But if it looks like it's in a letter that somebody, like you said, touched and held, and it's handwritten, and there's a handwritten return label, and it's a live stamp that's even maybe a little bit crooked, like that looks like it came from somebody, and I want to open that. That's the first step in marketing. Second step is, of course, having a good marketing piece inside, and then an action. But no, I think that's great. I would advise anybody to go ahead and just, do it at one stop, move on with your life so you can start taking those calls and quit worrying about trying to stuff letters yourself. I've lived that life. It's terrible. I get it when you're broke, but once you do a deal or two, invest that money back into your company so you can pour a little bit of gas on it and get it to grow. Now that everybody's fascinated with probates and they want to start doing some marketing, what's the best way for them to find you, to work with you, to get a hold of you? What can they do?
Let's see. I can drop my email if that's useful. I can. Website is probably the best place to start because everything funnels in from there, and you can get a hold of me and talk to my team. And so, website, it's usleadlist.com. How it sounds. Yeah, I mean, if you have specific questions for me, normally who fields that, it's my sales team. And so if you want to talk to me, ask them and they'll hook us up, and I'm happy to talk with you and just, learn a little bit about other folks' investing strategies and see if I can help them. And love meeting cool people in space. So.
Awesome. Well, we'll put put all of them down in the comments here below so that you know who to get a hold of. And again, I've been doing this for a long time, and even before we met, I think the first time we talked, maybe 5 or 6 months ago, I'm like, "Oh, you're the guy." It's kind of like I've heard of it, a million times. We bought some leads, years ago. So very cool to finally get and have a list. But guys, I would encourage you. Probate leads are literally a gold mine that are out there just waiting for you to go out and get them. They do take just a little bit more work, but typically, in our business doing transactions, we see some of the biggest assignment fees come from deals like this. So, definitely, US Lead List is the place that I'd go if I was going to start doing some marketing. So, Mike, any final words for everybody?
No, just keep grinding, keep hustling. There's money out there. You just got to have the will to make it happen.
There is.
I so appreciate you having me on here. Super fun to chat with you. And, I'm excited to hear more of your stories as well. I'm sure you've got a few iterations of all the things you've done, including the mill work.
I don't talk about that, but that was a fascinating business to be in. We'll have to jump back on and talk about that again. Being in these multi-million-dollar mansions, all over the coast in Florida, doing custom woodworking for them. It was pretty cool. So neat to see people who are real. I got to work with some real, true craftsmen doing, with super exotic woods, doing doors and frames and crown moldings, all types of stuff. So it was awesome. Well, again, thank you so much, everybody. Please check down in the comments here and US Lead List. Let's get a hold of them and let's get some leads. Hopefully your county's not already taken. So check it out now.